Hi guys and welcome. This is Gaita Siciliano, artist, memoir writer, bipolar psychiatric survivor, and your host of Not As Crazy As You Think podcast, the place that offers an alternative perspective on mental illness, highlighting creativity, non-conventional healing, and breaking on through to the other side. If you are ready for a new narrative on the mental realm that celebrates crazy and cool without penalty, then Not As Crazy As You Think is for you. Cheerios and Bananas. Jeannie had that smoker's jaded edge, but seemed honest and strong with a keen sensibility. She told me Sunday night was the shift open because nobody wants to work it. In but a few weeks, Sunday till 10 p.m. turned into a late-night closing at 1. I waitressed with Nicole, her daughter, whose red auburn hair was secretly as long as Rapunzel's, a foot past her butt like Crystal Gale, but you'd never know it because she wore it in a tight bun on the crown of her head while she bustled around her section in either smoking or dining room 1 or 3. Her father, the boss, was Tony, a cigar-puffing native Greek with often the raving mood, who strolled with pride through his kingly 20-year establishment, offering the old-school business handshake, which meant you agreed to work hard and do what was expected, or else. Especially learn that multifold diner menu, over 12 pages long, which in addition to the standard breakfast all day, carving board, starters, salads, and burgers, also included the sauté menu, with choice of rice or pasta, senior specials on Monday through Friday until 6 p.m., which included a coffee or a tea and a pudding dessert of either rice, chocolate, or bread, the panini menu with sweet fries that you could sub out for regular on either focaccia or flatbread, the old-fashioned entree menu that included the baked meatloaf or spanakopita, alongside specials of the day that might feature chicken pot pie or a T-bone or Cajun pork chops, and all of which included a potato, a veggie, a challah bread basket with breadsticks, and a soup or a salad, with dressing always on the side. When I first arrived, I knew it was fate. One of the managers, sharp-witted and sassy Shannon, had this urge to break into the abandoned Harlem Valley Psychiatric Center only a few towns away in Wingdale. She had read years earlier in Business Insider that artist David Ali photographed what was left of the massive complex before it would be taken over by Olivet University. The hospital sat abandoned for over 20 years and treated patients from 1924 until closing its doors in 1994, the year I was first hospitalized. Before it was gone, Shannon wanted to sneak in and check it out. Naturally, I was the perfect person to enroll because I had no fear of an abandoned mental hospital. But although I was down for a little adventure, getting caught doing such a thing might get me a possible life sentence in the nearest asylum, which was back at Putnam Hospital Center from where I was just released. I had the luck of always working with Patricio, the robust, he-can-do-anything waiter, bartender, manager, host, and even busboy, dishwasher if a few extra jobs needed to get done. As a server, he always said, "You're welcome," so politely and earnestly, with his suave, bouncy Ecuadorian accent and a muscular skip in his step. As a manager on my regular Sunday night shift, he happily taught me everything, right down to cleaning the stainless steel until it sparkled, because that's the way the boss wants it. He had a sort of bodybuilder physique, and sometimes he ate too many chicken wings late at night or maple blend-covered pancakes. But he stayed fit because he swam in the town lake with his kid and hustled tables like an Olympic athlete, stacking up to 7 plates and 2 arms for table 96 and landing there in perfect timing. When he'd serve on weekends on the closing shift, his sense of humor and fully rested mood at 9 p.m. picked up everyone's spirits, who had begun the dinner shift at the early bird hour, signaling round 2 had begun. And it meant we could finally take a break and bug Mario in the kitchen to make us something to eat while Patricio made some money. In his grand entrance to the kitchen, he'd call out to the cooks, "Hello, Chihuahuas!" and to the waitresses, "Hello, Flacas!" And if you knelt down anywhere near his crotch in the kitchen to grab butter for the bread basket or a takeout container, he never missed the chance to say, "Jen, not now," followed by his high-pitched giggle. But to his customers, he was gracious with his service and generous with his ear, especially with his regulars like late-night owls Danny or Uncle, as Patricia called him, and Randy. When Danny or Randy hung out at the bar or coffee counter, as a good waitress, even if I was busy with my own tables and wasn't assigned the smoking section, I always had to stop and listen to their banter in between serving coleslaws to table 30 and refilling coffees at 34 in dining room 3. Danny's nightly visit included a decaf coffee with milk at his counter spot at C3, usually around 9:30 or 10 p.m., and a fresh pot. He was a Harley biker with a handlebar stash and a mischievous grin, who wished to have a late-night snack slice of cake, or, if he was feeling in a healthy mood, a small tossed salad with apples, cranberries, and walnuts, or both. He rode his motorcycle once to Muscoot Farm to get his face painted at my tent, boasted an impressive knife collection, and posted on Instagram pictures he took of cute dogs at the park. Randy was a mustache guy, too, and an old-school video game enthusiast who collected vintage gems and fixed them up like new. He sported a koi fish tattoo sleeve, talked about his Siamese cats like they were his kids, and watched live the demolition of the Tappan Zee Bridge on this side of the river. And he was a fellow Italian from southern Westchester and from Yonkers, so he'd go on and on about how he made a mean sausage and peppers. For his late-night takeout, he liked his BLT and a cheeseburger, with no pickles but yes on the coleslaw, and sometimes a Reuben Deluxe, and always a coffee while he waited, no fries. The diner attracted people like me with the bipolar stay-up-all-night lifestyle. I had a chance to be around other non-mentally ill human beings with the same biorhythms. On 2 Friday nights a month, I worked until midnight with Eric, the weekend manager, who was particular about how to make a milkshake. Eric began his late-night routine with brewing a fresh urn of coffee as soon as he strolled in to manage at 9 p.m., always 15 minutes early. Then he'd cozy into his regular counter seat at C1 to watch Fox News on its max volume, while happily eating his 2 slices of microwave-warmed buttered challah bread. A fantastic eavesdropper and sharply alert to nuance and subtlety, Eric had been working late nights under Tony for decades, which gave him the savvy of a carnival barker mixed with the fine-tuned eye of an undercover cop. As one season flowed into the next, I continued serving on Sunday nights, making coffee and milkshakes for the tow truck drivers, the night security guards, the cops on break, and the teenage Spanish couple on their regular date, who would stroll in around 10 p.m. and order 2 beef quesadillas, a coffee, and a hot chocolate with whipped cream, along with the day laborers who worked even later into the night, who liked to order seafood Alfredo way past the sauté hour, and 3 Coronas, and the homeless father and son pair with 1 laptop that needed charging, who would each order toast, 1 egg, and a coffee, or splurge for a corn muffin or a side of bacon, and Mario Lopez. Mario would come in every Sunday night around 9 p.m. with his crew. Apparently, he was some kind of church guy who extended himself to a few young friends with their girlfriends, or maybe they were his sons or cousins. None of us was sure who anyone was, except the one main companion we took as his wife, who always wore heels and who for some strange reason appeared as his mail-order bride. Lopez was the annoying customer who would order New England clam chowder, then ask us to take all the potatoes out of the soup before we placed it in front of him, one of the main ingredients. And then sometimes Streetwise Jose would come in with a big crew of guys who had a weathered vibe and sported flannels, bushy beards, and tattoos, and who all looked like they were trying to bounce back from something. Jose liked to sub out the ham for extra bacon on his Hungry Man order. I spent Christmas 2017 with Jose on the inside, watching Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo. The moment we first recognized each other, an instant unspoken pact went into full effect, and we both immediately swore an oath to it. "Hey, how you doing?" I said, relaxed and unassuming in tone, but we both knew what I was asking. "Good," he said with a calm nod and a piercing side eye that said, "We know to both keep our mouths shut, right?" From there forward, we were on the down low. We were both on the inside of that psychiatric institution a year prior, and we respected our past journey together. We knew what went on in there, and we knew how undercover the witch hunt is, and how we were assigned to it. But most of all, we were all living together when Robert hung himself. "I need boundaries," I had told him. "I'll have the Hungry Man." It all came back to me. The dope girls and me sitting in the kitchen during our late-night yogurt snack. The scream, the running nurses, and hallway commotion. "Oh my God, Robert!" "What's going on?" I blurted as Christina already leapt from her seat with, "I'm going to find out," jumping into the flow of worried staff hustling into his room and arriving back in 30 seconds. "Robert's dead! He used his sheet and the overhead vent." I felt like I was punched in the stomach. During that hospitalization, mostly addicts were on the inside, who, after seeking answers and finding none, felt lost and needed to escape. Many were in their 20s. There was young Christina, who had a biting sense of humor and a $3,000 daily shoplifting habit to support her dope fix, and even younger Mia, who tried to commit suicide and failed, and whose boyfriend visited her 3 times with small presents. Young black dude Jamal came in talkative, wide-eyed, radiant, and brilliant. We talked about math concepts and numbers, but by day 2 on the meds, his ecstatic mania slowed down to a trance-like blasé state. And streetwise Jose, a young don't-fuck-with-me Puerto Rican, together with Jamal, talked about their experiences with the trap houses, the kind of people they were dealing with, and their lifestyles just before they came in. They were open to making some changes, and happy to be in there rather than in jail. For me, in there was jail. "Make the bacon crispy, rye toast, and a large OJ." Jose handed me the menu and said thank you, with a steady stare holding my eyes to his. "Don't betray me," he was thinking. And then there was Robert, who was a decade my senior and looked damn good for his age. Robert had a haunted past, living on the run from the cops for the last few years from Arizona through New York. His situation was dismal. I had compassion for him and listened to his life story for days, but he never shut up. Others had learned to walk away, but I felt sorry for him until one morning in the kitchen during our shared meal times when we were all eating Cheerios and drinking coffee. I had enough. The nurse had just informed me that the weekend psychiatrist wouldn't approve my dismissal for Christmas Eve, so my mood was vicious. I whipped sharply at him in the middle of one of his soliloquies. "I can't listen to you anymore, Robert. I need boundaries. I'm in here healing too." All the young heroin girls had now gone home and said they were going to get jobs at the diner. And even wise-ass wheelchair Rita, the 65-year-old junkie who admitted herself to this third-floor wing on a regular basis when she had no place else to go, rolled out of there a few days prior. But my sentence was to continue alongside Jose as the last female on the wing, with high testosterone, hungry-eyed men watching the movie Deuce Bigalow, Male Gigolo, instead of spending Christmas with my son. And how do you want your eggs? Make them sunny. I knew I was the last one to see Robert that night. There were only 9 of us left just before Christmas, and after he got his nighttime meds, he walked by me in the hall on his way to his room saying, "It's okay if you don't think I'm your soulmate." And after he went inside that room to prepare his exit, he never left it again. When I rolled my eyes at Robert and loudly declared my boundaries in front of everyone at breakfast, my bipolar irritability proved deadly. And yet, Robert opened up to me because he knew I could sympathetically receive his intensity because I walked with my own. I heard he had left a note. I have no idea what it said, but the cool male nurse, who in a previous life might have been a down-with-it coach like the guy from the 1970s TV show The White Shadow, singly pointed me out in the middle of group that night to go sit with him in a private room. He said to me, "I just want you to know it's not your fault. Are you okay?" "I'm okay." "Well, if you need to talk, we'll be here to listen." I had nothing to say because I knew it was not my fault. But since then, every time I get an uncontrollable urge to eat Cheerios and bananas and cold milk late at night, I know Robert's hanging with me. One of our dinner hour regulars at the diner, Steve, had outlived his son who committed suicide and also suffered the loss of 2 wives. Everyone wondered how rich Steve really was. He showered the waitresses with gifts of hats and rings, and to the guys hefty tips, and even directly to the busboy that cleared his fork, knife, and plate. He came in 3 times a day, so even if you worked only 1 shift a week, you were destined to run into him. He carried my business card with him in his front shirt pocket and tried to call a few times until I stopped him short with a firm hand. Oh, come on, baby. Just go to Montauk with me, or at least for dinner. He rode his mountain bike every day and didn't look his age of 85. But he wore, in a peculiar way, dark shades inside the restaurant and a glove on one hand like Michael Jackson. Most important to Steve was getting his cab handed to him promptly as soon as he sat in his regular booth at table 83. Or occasionally, if he wanted to change things up, he'd try a Malbec. But it was always the same routine at the checkout counter when the bill needed to be paid. How many Cabernets, Steve? 2? I counted 3. Oh, for Christ's sake, can't you give a guy that comes in here all the time, every day, a break? Like I said, no one knew how rich Steve was, but he liked to drink, and I always charged him for the third glass. Welcome to episode 4. This is Jen Gaita Siciliano, your host, and we are very lucky to have with us today Shannon Peterson. Hello, Shannon.
How are you?
Shannon was in the short story that we just listened to, and she was probably the one that saved my financial situation as I worked at the diner, because she kept my job there because the boss wasn't so thrilled with me. But she was a great manager, and she was always very supportive of all my creative endeavors. So I appreciate that, Shannon. I will not forget that.
I love it.
When I do become rich and famous, you'll get a nice little check in the mail. So anyway, in the story, I mentioned how you wanted to take a sneak peek at that abandoned psychiatric hospital, the Harlem Valley Psychiatric Center.
Yeah, it's something I've done before.
Now, tell me, you have done that before? You went over there?
Yes, twice.
No.
When I was much younger, of course. These were my diagnosable endeavors.
Really? Because it's been abandoned since 94. So you
right,
had made
so
it
I
over
would say
there.
I probably went there in 2000 and 2002 in that area.
So what did you do? Did you go during the day or at night, or like?
Well,
what was the
you have to go at night.
Of course.
So I, of course, were the other people that had my thoughts in mind to go do these mischievous things. So we went in, and the first time we were scared within 10 seconds, so we ran out. And then the second time I was with some people that weren't as scared, and I actually ended up running into a guy and a girl, and a guy who said he was security, but they didn't look of any official stature of any nature. But they actually gave us a tour of the entire place.
Wow.
So I saw we're like crematory on premises. What do they call them? I guess the mortuary area where they would put the deceased people, all the rooms like for the children and stuff like that. It was pretty creepy.
Wow.
The whole thing amazes me that they just had it up and running and then they just shut it down within days. Like, what did they do with all those people?
I know, that's a very good point.
Like, what, they just weren't sick anymore all of a sudden? They weren't crazy?
They had so much stuff out on the premise, and they even have like a dairy farm with an ice cream parlor.
Yes, I saw that. They had a bowling alley.
Yeah.
They had a golf course.
It's so weird.
Like a whole life in place.
Because you know what? They determined who should stay there. And then they put those people away. And then the society never had to deal with them again.
Right. But the thing, that's what made me start thinking, okay, were those people even sick?
Exactly.
Like, what made them determine, okay, now your life is going to be here? Because once you were admitted, they rarely left.
Right.
And I was like, And then they came out with all of these psychotropic drugs, they call them, or like lithium, Librium, and what was the other one that was big? Thorazine, they said back then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little Thorazine at one time.
Haven't we all? I
got to tell you, that's exactly what happened, because during that time period, it was 94, and they came out with the DSM-4 and the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and I was labeled in 94. And I was surprised to hear that that's like when it all happened, it all closed. And by that point, forget it, like psychiatry was all about the drugs. So they could put you on these drugs and then put you back into society. But the drugs in 94 were terrible. They weren't like they are now. They say it's medical. They say it's there to help. But what it really is doing is destroying lives.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think that they're very quick to diagnose everybody. Everybody has something. Like, of course they do. A little bit. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, everybody has like different moods per day. You can go through, actually, you can go through 10 moods a day. It depends on who you're dealing with, what you like, what time of day it is, what time of the month it is. Like,
I don't know how they got everyone to be so convinced that this is like okay to just continue to label everybody and put everybody in a box and say
people accept it. Okay, you walk in there, you talk to somebody you've never met for 10 minutes, maybe tops, and now they're giving you 3 different medications. One when you wake up, one for the middle of the day, one before you go to bed, because you're bipolar and you have depressive disorder. Like, you spoke to me for 10 minutes. You have no idea who I am. Like, don't.
Right.
Don't. It's almost like you're judging me.
Absolutely. See, that's what it comes down to. It's a judgment thing about personality type. They keep saying that there's all these symptoms.
Right.
But the symptoms are so general and vague.
Right. Like, it's like, oh, wait, that might be a symptom. That's part of the symptom. Right.
I mean, I just can't even believe after all these years, they're still getting away with it.
Worse and worse.
It's just increasingly continuing to get worse. There's no, I mean, within even just like the last couple of years, even with this past year with COVID, there's no real stop to this.
No, like, I want to know why, like, no one else is pushing back, though. Like, people are just accepting this, taking these medications and moving on. Like, I don't understand.
And why is that? Why do you think people aren't pushing back?
I don't know. Because the doctor said, or because maybe these medications make them feel better. I don't know. Because they say, like, once you start them, once you get off of them, you'll never feel normal again unless you have them.
Right.
Now, if you think about that, that's a scary place to be.
But, being on the meds as long as I have, it is scary because you know that your body has become dependent upon something that is controlling some kind of behavior, some kind of a thought. It's in terms of my situation, if I was to remove it and then something should happen, they're just going to put me away. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's I can't work with them to say, okay, well, I want to do some kind of other alternative type of method because there is no alternative.
Right.
And, they get away with it because they call it medicine.
Exactly.
And at some point, did you have to deal with this psychiatric institution as well?
I did. I had some diagnosable behaviors in their opinion. It was more of a recreational thing to me, but they felt differently. So they would want to put me on this, and this, and I'd be like, no. And they would get furiously angry, but we know what we're talking about. And I would be like, no, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with me.
Right.
Like, I don't think because I like to stay up late or I like to visit mental institutions or do these crazy things, I don't think that I'm crazy.
Right.
Like, just because you think that's crazy behavior, I don't think it is. Right. But yes, at a young age, I was doing some things that I shouldn't be. And
as many people do.
Well, did. Right. I think everybody goes through their own learning experiences with things that they do. And it go too far? Probably, maybe. But I don't think it went as far as to diagnose me with something,
Right.
Because I would deny it, they would always push harder.
Right.
Like, it was always like they would then, like, try to get my family involved.
Right.
Thank God they weren't jumping on that bandwagon, because if they did, I might be in a different position right now.
Right.
But nobody ever thought I should take these medicines. So it worked out for me, thank God.
Yeah.
But I see it like with I have a 12-year-old daughter in the school system. The second a kid acts out, they have ADHD, they need this.
Right.
What? Like, no, they acted out because their hormones are ranging, like, not because they need meds.
Right.
But it's every 2 seconds, ADHD, ADD, major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. Like, so everybody's something apparently.
Right. Well, there's 374 labels.
Right.
So if you can't fit into one of them, you know what I mean?
Then you're really screwed up.
Then you're really screwed. I mean, you just haven't been diagnosed yet, just because, I mean, that's how sad it is.
Right, but what are these people that are diagnosing us? What are they diagnosed with?
Wow, see, that's the real issue here. And I feel like that's always been, it's us and them.
Right.
We're the ones who are normal, you're the ones who aren't. What you just said about they would push back more, when you were saying, no, I don't want that treatment.
Oh God, they would get furious.
This is what they do. Yeah, they get furious, and they also take that as, and they'll write it in your record as non-compliance.
Yeah, non-compliance, which is another label that you get.
Yes.
You're now a non-compliant head case, so either way.
That's right. And they put all those down as symptoms. One of the major symptoms with
is non-compliance.
Yes, is non-compliance, and not thinking you have a problem.
Right. But I didn't consider it a problem because I was willing to give it all up.
Right. 1 out of every 5 who are diagnosed with COVID are also diagnosed with a mental disorder between 2 weeks and 3 months later.
Right. Of course. You were sick. You have this thing that you don't want anybody to know that you might have had because God forbid. And that also people lost their livelihoods because of this. They lost their jobs. They lost everything.
Right.
Yeah, that's not something to be happy about.
But I thought once COVID happened, people would be more like, oh, yeah, it's obvious mental illness is environmental because of what's happening outside myself. It's COVID. Now that's a trigger. It's an environmental trigger. It's not within my biology and in my genes.
Right. Because before COVID, I was absolutely fine.
Right.
No, but they're not. Now they're saying that no, they weren't. They just didn't know it. Such crap.
This is what I dealt with before I went to India and almost died, and actually feel like I died, okay, on the way home from India when I was sick there. When I got home and I was trying to explain to them about India, which was only a day or two prior from when I went into the hospital, they were saying things to me like, no. That's not, has nothing to do with it.
What?
That you almost died in India. You were sick before you went over there. And I'm thinking, I hadn't ever complained about being ill.
Right. Like, what do you...
in any way. Like, they are so not there for you emotionally, and then they're considered the experts when it comes to things like that.
Right, but then they're judging your emotions, though. So if you get pissed off, you're non-compliant, or if you get upset, look, she's depressed, she's crying. Like, no, you're making me a nut. Like...
If you have a whole system in place that tells everybody who's involved with them that there's nothing that they can do to improve their situation in this lifetime.
Right. That's almost like giving them a sentence.
It is an absolute sentence.
And if that's not depressing, I don't know what is.
Exactly.
I can never change this. I can never be out of these environmental stressors. Will never change.
That's right. Well, that's it. It's like when you can't believe that there's like an environmental change that you can make and it's all in you, well, then you're just totally like, okay, well, I guess I have no choices whatsoever. I'm just going to like ride through life and just
do what they say and
exist.
Right. Exist.
Well, it's so funny because it's almost like the most dull, straight-laced, uptight people are now determining what's normal, what's not.
This is the way I should be. Like, no, I'm not uptight.
I know. I'm like, okay, you might be quote unquote healthy, but like, what kind of, I don't want to be like you. No offense.
Right. Right. I am who I am, and that's not it.
Meanwhile, they say that their stuff is for medical purposes, right? Their psychiatric drugs are for medical purposes.
Right.
But any kind of treatment that you receive should be a voluntary thing. Now, with psychiatry, it is not voluntary.
Right. And I think that the amount of people that really need it, that it should be involuntary for, is like maybe 4% of the people that they make it involuntary for.
Right.
Like, yes, there are some people that need to be in places like a psychiatric facility, because there are people that are off the radar, unfortunately, and I don't know how or why, but there are.
Right.
But they put so many more people in that category than necessary. We're going to, inpatient, 30 days, there you go. You'll be better.
That's it, because they get money from the insurance.
Exactly. Right. If your insurance won't pay for it, then forget about it. You'll be out quicker than...
Thank you.
Right.
I was away at these places every time for 10 days at least, and they got at least $30,000 from my insurance each and every time.
Really?
Basically, my name and my life is helping others pay for their cancer treatments, which is fine, but not when my life ends each and every time these things happen, and then I have to restart and rebuild.
Right.
So, and the last time it did happen was right before Carmel Diner.
And if that place didn't make you crazy, I don't know what would.
Oh, please. I survived it.
Don't we all? Thank God.
Wow. Gosh, we did survive that place. So is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
No, just that you're great and they should listen to you. I think you're not as crazy as you think. And
Now that's what we want to hear. Well, thank you, Shannon, for joining us. Thanks for listening to Not As Crazy As You Think, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And remember, mental health is attainable for anyone, especially those labeled with mental illness. Until next time, peace out.